I agree. You're right.
Hey everyone, this is Vanessa and Scott Martindale with Blended Kingdom Families. We're so glad to have you guys here today, and we have some amazing special guests. They are some very good friends of ours, Bryson and Amy Coleman. Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you guys here. Today's topic, we are talking about working with your ex-spouses, and we have Bryson and Amy here with us today. So excited to have them here with us, and they are just going to share a little bit about their relationship as ex-spouses, but also how they co-parent for the betterment of their children. Bryson is the CEO and owner of My Home Windows, and Amy is an account manager in healthcare, and she has also been my best friend for about the past 12 years? Yeah, we met in Abilene when we were both single mom. Well, you guys were actually still married.
Yep.
But we met at church through small group and became amazing friends, and so glad to have you guys.
Continued.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Into Fort Worth. Here we are.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the blended family, kind of the dynamics of the history of you guys.
So we were married and had our first kid in 2008. So I was still in college, still finishing, work and figuring out what I was doing, and same goes for Bryson. And so we were young, and so we got married young. We just jumped into things and didn't know what we were doing. Like a lot of people, do that. And so I met him, I think, a month after I moved from Chicago straight to Abilene. So I was in Abilene, Texas, very small town compared to where I came from, and it was just a new experience for me. And so I met him about a month after I moved there, and it was just a whole different experience. So.
And you guys were married for how long before you kind of split up?
So we split up twice. We split up for the first time when Brody, our son, was 2 years old. And so we were able to do some counseling together and court-appointed counseling together. And we were able to kind of reconcile. And then at the advice of our counselor, moved back home. And so I moved back in, and we continued to work on our relationship. Ultimately, it did end up, divorcing. But it was a good try. Yeah. We were able to give it a good second try.
And just tell us about your children, kind of what that dynamic looks like now.
So we have Brody together. He is our 11-year-old, and he.
Awesome kid, by the way. He is so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He is. We've had a lot of experiences with Brody, and he's just great.
Well, he's an amazing athlete.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. I love watching the football.
Yeah.
Football videos that y'all put on.
Yes,
Appreciate that.
Thank you. We are blessed. The fact that we were chosen to be his parents is just every day.
Sometimes it's hard to figure out who's raising who with that one. He guides us just as much as we try to guide him. He really is. And we get compliments on him, and we appreciate every time we hear it. But I tell people all the time, I don't really think it's anything that we're doing. He's just a very special kid that we're very proud of.
Yeah, we sure are. He's taught us so much.
And loves the Lord.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I remember when Amy and I were single moms, and I would go over to her house to do laundry together. Brody dressed up in the armor of God.
I'm a soldier.
I'm a soldier of the Lord's army, and it was the funniest thing. I will never forget that. It was so cute, and so he is a special kid.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
So he's 11 now?
He is. He's about to be 12.
Okay, got it. Cool.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, tell us a little bit about your divorce and, kind of how that happened and, where you guys have come from since then.
So.
Who wants to take this one?
I think we both have, I think like most divorced couples, I think we both have different perspectives of it. And the most important thing to say is that we both were committed to Brody. And so it was messy. It was messy. It was painful. I think all of our friends and family would say it was a really bad time.
Yeah, and I think that's the most accurate way. Part of the message that for us is we, as good as we get along now, it wasn't always that way. Right. And like she mentioned, she She came from a much larger community. She was from the Chicago area, moved to Abilene. We were both 20 years old when we met. And we're both very similar, headstrong personalities, you know what I mean? And so at 20 years old, you know everything. And when both of you know everything and come from different worlds, those things kind of collided. And unfortunately, before they got better, they got worse. And that was just part of the growth in both of us individually, and then fast forward, for us, how we were able to come back together because of some of the similarities that brought us together, turned us into good friends down the road. So, it's hard to pinpoint certain things, but we just both know, look back at ourselves younger, at me at 20 years old, I shake my head like, who was that kid?
I think we all do.
You know what I mean? So. We both went through that, and as a result, we did get a divorce. We do have a great kid, and some of that foundation laid for us to have a great friendship now. So
wonderful.
Well, and I love how you're just very transparent about how it wasn't good, but now that it is, and I think that's something that's hard for blended families to talk about.
Sure.
Well, and I think a lot of folks are in that situation where they may be in the wilderness season, and they don't ever see the outside of this of, hey, we can come back to the concept of let's be great co-parents. We can still be friends. We can get along. We can manage this process beyond the pain.
Sure.
There's a mountain to climb, and then there's the other side of that mountain.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a ton of tunnel vision, when you're going through it. And so our hope, we agreed to come and speak with you guys because we want to shed some light on what it could be and what it could do, and if it can have an impact on any family, on any child's life, to have a good home experience with two separate parents. I mean, that's what we want. That's why we're here. That's why we're here to talk about it.
And we're so grateful for you guys doing that.
Yeah.
So Amy, you have always said that you and Bryson have a good co-parenting relationship, and I can tell by some of the stuff that you put on social media, which is absolutely hilarious. But has it always been a good relationship?
No, it has not. It took years, but we really came together. When we did get divorced, we both ended up in second marriages, and so we navigated through that. Ultimately, our second marriages also ended up in divorce, and I think it was in that time that him and I decided mainly for unity for Brody, because here we had both just had this epic life change again, and it was, how are we going to be positive role models to Brody? And I feel like, I remember when I found out I was pregnant, the only thing I could think about is making sure to raise him up in the Lord. That was, I was pregnant. That's the only thing I knew as far as being a mom, is I'm going to raise this child up, knowing Jesus. And so
good.
That's the one thing that I could hold on to. And then when we both went through our second divorces, it was, how do we role model this in the home? And it couldn't start in a better place than in our relationship and fixing that.
Good.
And so I think him and I going through this second life change, we were able to kind of start talking about some of the ways we could be better parents. And I think that's kind of what maybe was the catalyst for us trying to heal what had been broken.
That's so good. And so what are some of the things that you two do together to help maintain the goodness of your relationship?
Well, and so we actually have other children. So from our second marriage, we both have children that, believe it or not, are in kindergarten. So Brooks is his son, and Emmy is my daughter, and they're both in kindergarten. And so we have this, dynamic family type situation where Brody has two siblings, even though different places, but we can come together and we can kind of create this family
so awesome.
I don't want to say lack of a better word, because it is a great word and it is what it is. So we do a lot together as a family, and so these kids, they truly feel like they're a part of something. And Emmy thinks of Brooks like a brother, and they respect each other as a family. And Emerson respects Bryson as, you know, in her life, being a person of strong influence in her life. And and we help each other. And so, you know, he'll take Emerson out to Abilene, and they'll go drive around the ranch and do all the fun, you know, country stuff, and she feels a part of it. Yeah. Not only that, but his family has kind of adopted her into their life. And so she calls them, you know, T-Ma and Chop, and they, you know, they just have this great.
Yeah, she's got her Nana and Big Paws and T-Ma's and Chops, just like the other kids do. I mean, it's, you know, it's just kind of one tribe is kind of you know, what I tell Amy, you know, she'll say, hey, can I help it? You know, don't worry about it. You know, one tribe, you know, type thing. And that's just kind of the mentality that we try to grow with it.
Tribe, absolutely. I love that. And then, you know, we reciprocate too. So we're able to keep Brooks after school. So every day my mom will help out and pick up Brooks and Emmy every day from the same school. They go to the same school here in Keller. And so it just feels really good, you know, that we can provide that to them.
And that's amazing how your kids all combine.
Yeah.
How do you guys individually work together when it comes to, you know, you look at your relationship and you say, okay, this is a good ecosystem. Our kids are all getting along, but it's obviously equally important that you guys see eye to eye and you have a relationship together. So how do you guys make sure that stays intact, and what kind of, you know, boundaries or rules, or I don't want to call them that, but how is it working for y'all?
Well, I mean, those 20-year-old kids that met at 20 or 34 now. So obviously, you know, you learn a few things as go on. Grace, you know, was kind of one of those tools that I don't think either one of us used as much when we were younger. And so now I think that comes into play a whole lot more, you know, in our favor, that we're able to use that. So we understand, use the word seasons earlier. You know, at 34, I may be in a season now that I'm not in, you know, 2 years from now, or I was 2 years ago either. Yeah. And the same for Amy. So I think we kind of utilize that, you know, a lot more. Brody, I had taken him to football practice the other day. He kind of gets banged up, you know, and he's like, you know, my helmet hit to my arm, you know, and I'm like, buddy, it's football, you're going to have to start shaking some of that stuff off, you know. And Amy's like, oh my gosh, we need to take him to the ER, you know. He's fine. You know, and he's like, oh, you know, it hurts, you know. And then 3, 4, 5 days later, she ends up taking him to the doctor, and he's got a fracture in his arm, you know. And Dad was sitting there going, you know, he's fine. That was a perfect opportunity for her to, you know, get a hold of my throat. And she said, hey, things happen. We didn't know, you know, and moved on. But in her, she could have very well have, you know, thrown me to the wolves. You know, kid had a fracture in his arm, and I'm going, he's fine, you know. But in those moments, we just kind of go, hey, we're trying to figure this out. And everybody is. Nobody has a book on what we're doing with our kids. Yeah. Whether you are married still in a family, you're going to have those instances where you're going to defer to dad, you're going to defer to mom. And that doesn't really change when you're trying to navigate that from different households. So, you know, I mean, I think that's helped. The Grace thing has helped us out both a lot, you know. You know, and it's an open door policy. It's really, you know, I live down the street. We don't know, we find ourselves constantly asking whose weekend is it or whatever. At this point, we don't know anymore. We don't watch calendars on when we're supposed to be a parent. You know, I don't knock when I walk into her house. She doesn't knock when she walks into mine. And we just try to maintain a friendship, you know, together that, you know, allows for kind of an open door policy, which is not everybody's cup of tea. You know, not everybody is able to do that, and I understand it. But for us, it works, and that's been healthy.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to stress. I mean, we are always being watched. We have these 3 kids that are always watching our interactions, the way we talk to each other, the way that we treat each other. I want all of them to really know that this is how respectful people behave, because there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be these scenarios where you're not going to agree with people. Sure. And so, you know, we constantly are trying to mirror to these kids how we want, how respect is given. And so I think since we were married, I think we both improved on the verbiage in our home.
Yeah.
I think we have really, there's no name calling. There used to be a lot of hurtful words, and so I think being able to rein that in is a way that it's been better and a way that we've changed. And then we're both very respectful in the sense that we don't include Brody. We don't necessarily include Brody in things he doesn't need to be included in. So
good.
we,
That's so good.
when it comes to parental decisions, it's him and me, and we don't, bring the kids into it whatsoever. And so we just address it kind of behind closed doors, and then they see the good things, and they don't necessarily see the bad things.
Wonderful.
And ever since, one thing Bryson, I want to say, he's always done, even when we did get divorced, is he always demanded that Brody respect me. And so even when him and I absolutely hated each other, I still would hear him on the phone, correcting or trying to say, you mind your mother or you listen to your mother. So that was something that he's always done. That was, a big part of, I think, probably why Brody is who he is.
Absolutely.
Well, and I know Scott and I have had conversations about this, especially with society nowadays. A lot of that father leadership and those qualities that you're passing on to Brody, there's so many families and children that just, they don't get that.
Yeah. And they feel, because of a split custody situation, especially in blended families, I think it's equally important that fathers understand that they are a father, whether they are in custody or not. If they're in their house or not in their house, they're always the father. And that lesson needs to span across households.
Sure.
So it's amazing that you guys have continued to do this. Just a wonderful parenting relationship.
What I love is if any of our listeners follow Bryson or Amy on social media, they will snapshot some of their text messages to each other and put them on social media, and it is absolutely hilarious. And I have to share one, which was about when, I think, Amy, you had said one of our children called the police on accident, and then Bryson, your response was, well, who was it, or whose child was it? And I think, Amy, you said it was ours, and Bryson's response was turn on some gangster rap and handle it. And I just remember laughing so hard, and I just thought that was one of the cutest things. And it was just fun, but I think it just really shows how well you guys get along. So what is some advice that, and I want to hear from both of you, that you could give our listeners today, whoever is listening, on how they can better improve their relationship with their ex-spouse?
I use humor a lot to disengage certain tenseful, situations. If Amy's worked up about something, on the car ride over here, she's like, we're going in front of cameras and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it helps me. I don't know if it helps somebody else, but it helps me just to kind of break some of that up. Yeah. And as far as social media goes, some of the things that I started seeing growing from an early time with me and Amy was that support. Once we put out there that we were supporting each other, we got more support from the people around us.
Absolutely.
And so I never stopped that. I always thought it was important that, not only for our circle, but the things that influence our circle, that supported, because that helps us as parents. It helps our kids, that everybody kind of knows. It kind of helps keep an enemy away, from letting anything negative kind of enter our circle. So
that's good.
I've always been, I love it. She sometimes will go, why are you doing this? You know what I mean? And I'm like, because it's funny. And
it is funny.
Yes. If she's like, oh my gosh, one of our kids called the cops, I'm going to ask her, do you have a warrant? Is
there anything that I need to know about? Do I need to know the kids?
But yeah, I think that's healthy, and I think that it helps us, and helps the influence of our circle. So, why not?
That's great.
Amy, what advice would you give on how to better your relationship with your ex-spouse? What does that look like?
There's just a lot of things. The first thing I can say is that it's not about me. It's not about him. It's, we have kids together, and we have to build up the next generation. we have got to raise better leaders. We have got to raise children that do the right thing, that treat people the right way, that love each other. And you have to start with yourself. You have to start with yourself and what you can control and what you can own. And I think we've both done a great job at just handling ourselves, what we can control, how we can react, control our reactions. And the kids are going to learn it and they're going to see it. And that's how we can start. It's not a perfect world. This is a very broken world, and we need to be intentional with every single thing we do with our kids. Everything, from the way we talk, from what we read, from what we watch on TV, from the influences that we allow. And so when you can come together with an ex-husband that has a similar mindset in order to help everything, that's ultimately my best advice, is despite the differences, despite where we have disagreements on things, because we still do have disagreements on things. And so I'm a lot more conservative. He's a lot more like, let the kids do, stay up later. And I'm like, structure. They have to be in bed, like no tablet at night. Like we have these constant battles with those types of things, but the kids never see it. And so I think just keeping them first and just being intentional about going after all of their hearts, including Brooks. And I know he'd say including Emmy in his life, like every choice we make is with all three of them in mind.
That's awesome.
So I think that helps. And then, just having a good support system, making sure you surround yourself with just strong people, adults, children that you want for your kids. You can guide them and try to help them find the friends that you want them to be friends with, or you could draw boundaries on what they're allowed to do. And I think that's something that we've done well, is just kind of limit the freedom a little bit as far as what kids can get into.
No, that's good. That's good.
And some of that stuff doesn't change whether you're married or whether you're divorced. You know what I mean? You have a balance and power on who handles certain things or difference of opinions, whether you're living in the same household or you're not, you know what I mean? And that's just one of those things that we've had to come to grips with is, your way of doing things may not be mine, but, in order for the greater the good, I'll give on some things, you give on some things, and we handle those things privately, you know what I mean? And we don't post on social media when we're having an argument about something. Because you wouldn't have that in front of your kids either.
Absolutely.
And that's, we don't pretend to be perfect in anything that we do, but we do have a good relationship, and we do want to celebrate when things are going great.
Well, the one thing that's unique about blended families in general, we're trying to get along as adults, but we also have this wild card, which is a child that can go this direction one minute, this direction another. So the closer that unit is to respecting each other and making decisions together, the better you're equipped to handle those right and left-hand turns that a child may make. There's a big difference between Brody at 11 and Brody at 16, or 17 or 18. And children who are 5 versus 12. There's different dynamics that are taking place. So the closer, and the one thing that I heard from you guys is just a mutual respect for each other. Obviously there's a distance that you guys have closed, and a family unit you guys have combined together, but there's also a lot of respect for each other and the decision-making processes that each of you have, which is gonna make it a lot easier to handle when the dynamics change.
Yes, absolutely.
So absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. So, fun question, you guys. Are you ready?
I don't know.
Okay, Amy. So this question is for both of you. What are you could say like 1 or 3 things? What are some of your favorite things about co-parenting with Bryson?
We have mutual interests. I mean, we really do. We love the same things. Like we have. We just both love the outdoors. We both love nature. We love God's world. I mean, when I met Bryson, that's kind of where, we'd go out and just drive around outside. It was just like, we have the same interests. And so I enjoy the fact that, he can call me up and say, hey, want to go kayaking? Can I come pick up your kayak? And so, come pick up my kayak. Yeah, that's fine. And so then he'll take, Brooks and they'll go kayaking. And so I think we have similarities and interests that make it easier, because I enjoy watching him do those things. And, I can say, hey, why don't you take Brody and go backpacking? I'll keep Brooks for the weekend or whatever. And then, I know him and Brody would love to go out to Big Bend or somewhere, and go do their thing. Mm-hmm. So, having those interests, knowing that that's something that I'm, interested in as well. I think it could work the opposite way, even if you know that your son or your daughter doesn't have the same interests as, me, still pushing that. So just really pushing kind of where they bond. And so Brody also loves the outdoors. And so just, being able to all co-parent and do things like that is important. And then also the humor. I mean, I enjoy kind of being the topic of humor in his world. There's no telling how many Snapchats are of me that I don't even know about. But I think we have fun with it and we laugh and, just finding those commonalities.
Mm-hmm. That's so important.
Bryson, what do you love most about co-parenting with Amy?
Yeah, I mean, we do. We have a genuine friendship that we've built and back over the years. And a lot of it is because of the similar interest. We do share a child together. And so we share some of those kind of inside things that, you know what I mean? And some of it goes on social media, hey, I've just brought in orange juice to our child listening to Bohemian Rhapsody in the bathtub.
I saw that one. Yeah. That one was funny. In a special glass.
Yes, orange juice in a champagne glass.
Yeah.
This was their son asking.
Yeah, this is Brody.
This is Brody.
He's sitting in the bathtub, and about 25 minutes later, I go to check on him. Brody, Brody, are you okay in there? He's been in there forever. He's got Queen playing on whatever device he had in there, and I'm thinking, hey, this is going to help expedite the bath situation. Like, can I get you anything, like a towel maybe or something? Yeah. And he responds, yeah, some orange juice in a champagne glass.
I love it.
That's awesome.
So of course I had to, I had to tell. I mean, that's just hysterical.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
Text him, he screenshots it, puts it on social media, and then of course.
And we appreciate that. I appreciate
I'm
that,
glad.
Bryson. So keep doing it.
Glad.
Keep doing it. It makes me smile.
Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff, that you get to share, it helps you build those friendship moments.
Sure.
But that open door policy again, that we're able to go, we're in the same neighborhood. We'll go take long walks with the kids, and they're stick fighting and, walking by duck ponds and stuff and just kind of exploring, We're able to do that just because it's a friend down the street, type thing. So that makes it easy for us, She gets a new pair of rollerblades for her birthday and it's only her that's going to send me a text, hey, I got new rollerblades, I'm coming over, you know what I mean? And she's rollerblading on my hardwood floors as she's coming through the house, you know what I mean? And so we have those laughing moments that we're able to say, build memories on and have with our kids. Yeah. And because of those similar interests, we're able to give those to our kids. I mean, our kids get to see a little bit more of the world. She's very adventurous. You know what I mean? She loaded up the kids this Christmas, by herself. Took I don't know how many connecting flights, but spent crazy amounts of hours, traveling, connecting flights to get to the mountains in northern Washington to be able to take the kids skiing. And so she's out there by herself with...
She does that.
Yeah.
All your camping trips.
I've seen that. I saw a picture one time. I go, did she just take the kids camping like in a different state? And she's like, yeah, that's what she does. Yeah. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, and she'll do it by herself. She'll just load up and go, you know what I mean? And that's... As Brody's getting older, a little bit more self-sufficient, you know what I mean? That's a little bit, but you've got a 5-year-old, at the time that was, raring to go, get into everything, you know what I mean? So that's a little bit hectic. And so it's, hey, look, I respect that, but some of those things that kind of make you look at and go, hey, look, these kids are getting to do some cool things because their mom is doing some cool things with them. So that's that's just definitely a box that's being checked, in her corner that keeps things rolling.
No, that's good. That's good. And I just want to encourage you guys, keep putting that stuff out there because I know that if it brings me encouragement, it will bring other blended families encouragement as well. Because, I was with you guys from when you were together all the way up until now, and I can testify. It wasn't always good, but God is so good. And I just love the redemption and the restoration that he has done in your family.
Yeah.
And the fact that you guys help raise each other's children that are not your biological children. I mean, that's just amazing. Like you don't see that. You don't see that. So
there's no other explanation other than the grace of the Lord.
Yeah.
There's no other explanation for us being able to get past that pain that we had experienced. And I'll just say something that's, it's kind of a strong part of our story is when, I hope this is okay to say, when...
We're going to find out.
Here we go.
I held on to a lot of, just resentment,
Yes.
for lack of a better word. And it was through Bryson's second marriage that he ended up being baptized. And this was something I prayed for so long. Like, I wanted him to find the peace that, that I knew existed in the Lord. And so I was already living here, and I knew he was getting baptized at Beltway Church in Abilene, and that was where we had all gone to church. And so when I heard that, I knew I had to be there, because this is something I had prayed for so long. So I had people that still, worked at the church, contacted them, found out what service he was getting baptized at. He had no idea, but I was there. And so I drove all the way to Abilene to witness him get baptized. And when it happened, when I saw him just proclaim, the Lord as his Savior, like, every bit of my resentment melted away.
It's so good.
Like, it was almost like pure magic. I mean, it was just like, you pull these chains and you pull them around, and you have this anger, and and I was not perfect either as a wife.
Sure.
I talked too much. I told everybody our problems. I didn't keep it sacred in between us. And so there was a lot of things I did wrong, but for that moment when I was able to sit in the back of Beltway, in the very back, nobody knew I was there. I took a friend with me just because I needed a little bit of support. And it was the most incredible feeling ever. And from that point on, like, I was able to forgive and move on. And it was just a very, very, very intense moment. So it is possible, and forgiveness is wonderful. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
Yeah, we love you too.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And to Amy's credit, when things like that happen, there's lots of stuff that are happening behind the scenes, praying into people, and that's something that, she was obviously during that time. And she never, I didn't find that out till a couple of years ago. She never came back. I was there. You know what I mean? It was never, she did that, for her as a support, and to her credit, that means a lot, that she did that. That was obviously a very important time, for me, and to know that, your son's mother, would go out of her way, drive the miles to go do that, and do it very selflessly behind the corners, behind the curtains, type thing. And that's, it's just a testament to the mom and, the commitment that she has to our family. So
wonderful. So as we kind of conclude this interview, and we loved having you guys, and your story is inspiring, and I hope as you're listening to this that you are inspired to understand what is possible. Blended Kingdom Families, the concept behind it is putting Christ in the middle of our blended families, and putting the center of God's forgiveness, God's grace in our relationships. So to both of you, whoever would like to answer this, what does a blended kingdom family mean to you?
Blended kingdom family, you just have to, first and foremost, every choice you make, every decision you make, every word you speak has to be focused on the Lord. No matter what. And when you yourself can make that your mission in life, the rest will hopefully follow. As long as you can look at yourself and honestly ask yourself questions and correct your behavior if you're wrong, and ask for forgiveness if you make a mistake or say something. I think you just have to remember who Jesus is, and remember what he has called all of us to to do and to be,
Yeah.
and most importantly, how to treat others. And when you keep those things in your life and your mindset every day with every choice you make, ultimately your families will follow.
Wonderful.
Hopefully. And so blended kingdom families is that, you know, it's no matter what situation you're in. Obviously there's going to be a lot of divorced parents. There's going to be a lot of second divorced parents. And, you know, when you can continue to keep that, that's what I feel like it represents.
Wonderful.
Love that. Bryson, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's a daily work in progress. You know, I mean, whether we're married or not, we don't know what our kids are going to throw at us. You know, the season that we're in. So I've got a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 11-year-old that's about to be a 12-year-old. You know, the way that they acted at 5 and 6 is not the way they act at 11 or 12, and I don't know what I'm about to get into at 13, 14, 15, 16. So their seasons change just as well as ours do. We as parents have to adjust to that just as much as they do. So, and that's whether we're living in the same house or not.
Yeah.
So it's always a work in progress, you know, for us, as well as them. So you do that the best that we can in a positive spirit. Add some humor in on.
A lot of humor is needed here in the cases.
In the house or, however. So, I mean, that's what we support each other, you know, and our kids. So that's just what it means in my eyes. So whether that's right or not, I don't know.
Love it.
And lots of grace. Lots of grace, because we're all messy. Whether you're married or not, you're always going to have disagreements with your spouse. You know, we're always going to probably bump heads on something. But lots of grace. I think blended kingdom families is a true testimony to grace, you know, and it is the earthly, description or the earthly portrayal of grace and restoration and what God represents. And so I think it's a wonderful ministry. I just love you guys and support you guys so much because it's so needed, for people. There's a lot of people you guys are going to touch.
Wonderful.
Well, we hope that all of our listeners and the families that get to hear this and watch this are touched and encouraged by your testimony and your story. So we just want to say thank you both so much for coming on and sharing your hearts and opening up your lives for everybody to hear.
Sure. We appreciate being on and everything that you guys are doing very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, guys, thanks so much. This has been an amazing opportunity to visit with Bryson and Amy and just hear their story of redemption, grace, what's possible. So many people in these situations don't know what the other side of the mountain looks like. And it's good, and God's grace is enough to get us there. So we have loved having you with us. Hope you have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care. Be blessed.